want to be able to look back at this and say we had a good time.
All right, so let me just review the afternoon schedule. Adrian's going to give us Keynote in about, and it'll last until 12:10 at the latest. He might cut it back a little shorter. And after that, we're not going to take lunch right away. We're going to wait on lunch until another hour and a half. From 12:15 until 1:45, we're going to be in room M10. Room 105 is the bottom floor of the lecture hall. Not the Kenki building, not the administration building, the lecture hall on the ground floor in the corner is room M10 105 for 3 Second Life-based presentations. Kind of like the Wonderland that we had earlier today and yesterday, but based in Second Life rather than in Wonderland. And then from 1:45 to 2:45, up in our lab, which is 328 E and F, we're going to have a luncheon demonstration session. So the students are setting up interactive live demonstrations with all the attendant adventures that go with such academic, poorly prepared, sloppily presented presentations. But it's going to be there's going to be lunch there. So we're going to have hamburgers and onigiri. Onigiri are triangular rice balls with nori, seaweed wrapped around them, a typical Japanese luncheon, with presumably vegetarian options for those of you that don't eat meat or have other dietary restrictions. And then that'll finish around 2:45, and then from around 3 to 4, there's going to be an optional Second Life session. If there's interest, we'll fire up the Second Life terminals over in the UBIC seminar room. But if there's insufficient interest, we'll cancel that. And then for those guests that are going to Nagaoka, the shuttle bus is scheduled to run from the university at 3:30 back to Washington Hotel, where you can pick up your bags or your father's or whatever. And then the train from the station leaves at 4:36. So if you miss that shuttle bus, I'm going to be leaving the university around 4 o'clock, and you're welcome to get a ride with me if for whatever reason. And there's plenty of time to stop by the hotel and pick up whatever you need before getting to the station in time. Okay.
For the rest of us who aren't going down there, what's the best way to get back to the hotel later? Like after the
there's buses about every half an hour.
Oh, okay.
I don't know the exact schedule, but they're posted on the kiosk across the street from the university as the ones going towards the station.
Okay.
And it only takes half an hour to walk, maybe a little bit longer if you limp. Adrian Cheok is director of the Mixed Reality Lab at the National University of Singapore. He's concurrently associate professor in the Department of Electrical and Computer Engineering at NUS. He's also a full professor at Keio University, the Department of Media Design, that just opened up a new campus in Hiyoshi, Yokohama. Is about an hour south of Tokyo. He's worked in real-time systems, soft computing, embedded computing. He was at MERL, Mitsubishi Electronic Research Labs in Osaka. He's been doing research on mixed reality, human-computer interaction, wearable computers, smart spaces, fuzzy systems, embedded systems, power electronics, multimodal recognition. He's had a lot of success getting support from various foundations for his lab. He was IEEE Singapore section chair. He's currently ACM SIGCHI chapter president. He was a Hitachi Fellow. He was A-Star Young Scientist of the Award, SES Singapore Young Professional of the Year, on and on. I could keep you here for an hour and a half reading his resume, but much more interesting than his accomplishments is him in person. So without further ado, I present to you Professor Adrian Cheok.
Thank you, Michael, and just want to say thank you very much to Michael for organising this conference and the great invitation, and I enjoyed the time here. And looking forward to Nagaoka as well tomorrow. So today I'm going to talk about the research that I'm doing in my lab called feeling communication, and looking at how can we create new types of social and physical interactive communication and entertainment. So first of all, why should we be interested in such communication? So in the early 80s, Bowlby, who is a very famous psychologist, did some very good research to show that humans are social creatures and find physical interaction and physical touch is essential for enjoyment of life. So if you want to create enjoyable forms of media, then we should take into consideration the physical aspects and embodiment of the media. So, although currently we have, of course, high-speed global communications with internet and broadband and mobile, but often it's difficult to have a very deep communication, even with audio or video, because in the physical world we often use all of our senses to explain more deeply our intended mind or feelings. So in the real world, the clothes we wear and our sense of taste and smell, even if you're cooking for someone, that is a kind of communication. And then we lose this if we don't have the ability to communicate with physical or with all of our senses. So we should make, especially now that we're in the global connected age and we cannot always be physically together, then we should look at making new systems of communication, not just communicating raw information, but also our deep feelings and intentions, expressions, and even culture. And also related is some work which has been done in the area of tangible interfaces. So Donald Norton wrote the book Things That Make Us Smart, and he showed that physical objects aid cognition and are used as information artifacts. And then physical objects have been shown to aid collaboration, as so for example in meeting, collaborative media and collaborative play, as well as serving as cognitive artifacts. So because we have evolved over hundreds of thousands of millions of years in the physical world, but still it's deeply embedded in us. The embodiment, our thinking is through our body. And actually more and more researchers are now finding that our body actually is aiding our thinking. So there is no real separation between brain and body. So as I mentioned, so in terms of interactive media, to aid this kind of embodiment, we should look at how can we merge the real world and the virtual world as seamlessly as possible using new kinds of ubiquitous media. And how can we have interaction of the natural physical space in the real world with the virtual world. So it shouldn't just be virtual world mirroring the real world, but both should be able to affect each other. And so on the on how can this benefit to society and humans, so if we can create new kinds of network social interaction to allow a seamless interaction between physical and virtual world, and to use these kind of techniques for bringing delight and social bonding in humans and societies. So it's cut off there for some reason, but there's, for example, there's a growing trend in HCI research to look at fun and entertainment. Recent, or maybe not so recent, but the issue of ACM interactions, especially should be on fun, has a lot of the fundamental papers on this topic. So first of all, I want to talk about the related areas of entertainment and communication in both physical and social world, and show some of the kind of research and prototypes that I've developed with my students in this aim. So in general, we should consider entertainment and art as very important to our human happiness. So because for having a fulfilling human life, we have to have both mental richness as well as material richness. So we can provide a lot of the infrastructure and material comfort, but it's not enough unless we have mental richness. And so technology can provide the material richness, but mental richness is provided from areas such as culture and entertainment and art. So we should try to merge those fields for fulfilling life. And why is physical important? So when we look at entertainment, then why should we find physical entertainment? Well, in the real world, we have both physical experiences and mental experiences. So physical experience using the senses of our body, and mental experiences which are processed in our mind. And we can integrate these to form both physical and mental entertainment experiences. For example, we have we have things like karaoke, theatre, musical performance, and sports. And it's also important to note when we think about entertainment that there's both passive and active experiences. So passive experience, for example, reading a book or watching a movie, you can feel entertained, but you're watching the experience. And then for active experience, for example, playing sports and making art, that people are active. So if we can integrate both these dimensions, so physical, mental, active and passive, then this is a new field of entertainment that we can create by merging physical and mental as well as active and passive. So interactive movies, new kinds of mixed reality entertainment, and for example things like entertainment robots, this new kind of integrated experiences. So I guess maybe you all know about mixed reality, but just in case, so mixed reality is defined as mixed reality is one where we can integrate both physical and virtual experiences by creating interaction in both augmented reality, where we can merge the virtual world into the physical world. So, for example, the virtual frog there, and augmented virtuality, where we can integrate the real world in real time into the virtual world. So then this allows this kind of seamless transition from real environment to the virtual environment. So first I want to show a very simple example, especially since this conference is on the topic of education. So to show a simple topic, how augmented reality could be used for applications for children's and children's play. So this was a work I did in collaboration with Mr. Katai in Kyoto University, and he's very interested in modelling care and nursing and therapy. And so this work was to look at sand play therapy, which is a kind of therapy for children, because if children need therapy, they might find it very difficult to speak to a psychologist. So instead, sand play therapy developed that they can play with objects in sand and create a story, and then this is expressing their feelings. So in the actual sand play therapy, then you basically have sand and plastic objects and water. So the idea was to expand this so that you still have the physical interaction in the real world between therapist and child, but they could expand the amount of expressions they could do, because you could mix the physical world together with the virtual objects and have an extended range of expression. So I'll show you a video of the prototype.
Mixed reality Japanese garden design for social interaction and storytelling. In this system, the user wears a head-mounted display and uses a small paddle to do the design. In the first-person view, you will see the virtual white sand garden and a virtual Japanese castle. To do the design, the user needs to choose different objects from a virtual menu. By using the paddle to hit the page change button, she can browse through different pages. She can then pick up the object and take a close look at it, or even show it to her colleagues and have some discussion. After choosing the objects she likes, for example this tree, the user can put it into the Japanese garden and use the paddle to move it to the proper position. User can also put a fish pond in the garden. and modify its size to match with the size of the whole garden. The user can then add fishes into the fish pond. Once added, the fish will start to swim in the pond automatically. The fish pond can also be moved to the proper position as the user prefers. When she pushes pond, the fish will move together with it. Once the garden is finished, the user can hold it up in her hand and take a close look.
So you can see the most important point, even though the example is very simple, but the users can use their hands to pick up and place the object. So children at a very young age can easily use such a system, and also interacting together with the collaborators, so on the same physical space. So the key point is that this allows tangible interaction with the physical objects. So that was showing some augmented reality, and as I mentioned, another way that we can provide collaboration in both real and virtual worlds is by augmented virtuality, where we can take the physical world in real time and then take it into the virtual world, and people can interact in the virtual environment. So this system here, called 3D Live, allows human or any other object to be captured in real time, for example 30 frames per second, and it basically has multiple cameras and can then create a virtual viewpoint from any position. So you can then take this 3D virtual viewpoint, and put it into the virtual world in real time, even across networks. So here you can see one of my students, and then she's looking at another student who is in another location, and then they can communicate in 3D. So you have a real sense of presence together, even though both are in different locations. And so here's an actual real-time video. So no, this is not pre-rendered. This is not animated. This is real-time capture and display through a network of the virtual viewpoint of the collaborator. So you can have collaborator in, for example, New York, and then you could be talking to him or her in Tokyo. And so in terms of how can we use this for interactive storytelling and new kinds of play and collaboration, so we created a exhibition in Ars Electronica Museum of the Future using this 3D Live system, which allowed children to interact on a table where they could move around both virtual objects, virtual characters, as well as real characters on the table. So you can see here they can pick up virtual characters, put them onto the table, and then not only can they make a story and collaborate together on this table to make a story in the virtual world, but their friends also appear in real time on the table, and then you can do interesting actions. For example, put your friend under the cloud and it starts raining, and so you can have this real sense of interaction in both with virtual characters as well as your friends. So you can imagine you can have, for example, you can have a virtual soccer game. Instead of playing with virtual characters, you can see all your friends playing together in the virtual environment. So, I'm sorry, some slides are in Chinese because I gave this talk in China. And so this, another way is to take the virtual world and mix it and interact with the physical world is by creating augmented reality in our wide space. So I became very interested in not just having augmented reality applications, for example, in a room or in a tabletop, like we saw for the Kyoto Garden work, but that the augmented reality could appear everywhere. And actually, I was doing some work with the Defence Science Agency in Singapore, and was making a system where soldiers could see labels in the physical environment. So for urban combat, they could see location of sniper or labels on buildings. So in a urban combat situation, they didn't have to look at maps. They can just see labels augmented in the environment. But then I became very interested on this could create new kinds of play and interaction. And so this work here was combining the traditional video game, in this case Pac-Man, with the physical world, so called a human Pac-Man. And the idea is that people can embed the virtual fantasy game directly into their physical environment, but play this in a wide outdoor physical area. So you're not constrained, for example, playing in a room, or sitting in front of a computer, or standing in front of a TV, but you're playing outside and in the wide area space, just like we do for sports or other types of physical entertainment. So this can create another type of integrated experience in our outdoor physical space together with the virtual world. So the idea is that people can will wear wearable computers, and they will see in the physical space, of course they still see their physical surroundings, but then they will see also, for example, virtual cookies. And to collect these cookies, you have to run and move your body as if you are really physically the game character. And then at the same time, your avatar is moving in real time, almost real time, in the virtual environment. And the idea is that you can have this link between virtual world and real world again, because people who are in the looking through the virtual world can directly help play the game together with the people playing in the physical world. So for example, the Pac-Man helper can tell Pac-Man, okay, the ghost is in the next street, so you better run to the next block. So you have this kind of, again, this collaboration together. And so you can see the outline here. So if people are playing in the city streets, then we track their position and orientation, and then their avatars will move in real time in the virtual world. So you have that link between your body and with the virtual character that you represent. And so as I mentioned, from a first-person point of view, you will see augmented reality and, for example, collecting the cookie. And then in the physical world, you're embodied as an avatar, which is collecting the cookie in the virtual world. And you can see the example of the action of walking through the cookie. It looks in the augmented reality world as if you're physically walking through such a virtual object. So, first I'm going to show you, we had to make a demo for indoors first, even though it was meant for outdoors, because we had to do a demo in Kai, I think 2004. So this shows you all the system. In the next video I'll show you outdoor version. But you can see here example of Pac-Man and Ghost, and using the wearable computer, which is not very wearable, it's about 3 kilos, but this is research. Anyway, so here's a physical maze, and you see it directly corresponds with the virtual maze. And as the people move their bodies in the physical maze, then their avatar will move in the virtual environment. And so you can see the augmented reality scene, and also this interaction with physical objects. So, for example, touching a treasure, which is in the physical world, can give you kind of extra power in the virtual world. In this case, you can become the Super Pac-Man, and then again, eat the ghost by touching. So this next video actually from TV, because they film very nicely. But you can see in the outdoor, we have an even bigger wearable computer. But anyway, we can do quite smooth and accurate tracking. And so you can see in the wide outdoor space, you can see these virtual cookies, and they appear to be quite stable on your physical world. So you can play the game in the wide area, city streets playing together. And so the whole idea is that in the future, actually in the very soon future, I think, people will play this kind of outdoor physical entertainment, combining both virtual and physical world together. So, so you can see that that kind of system can combine the physical and virtual world and provide both virtual and physical experience, entertainment. But it needed a lot of equipment. So, although now basically you can do most of that kind of interaction on your mobile phone. So, so I think I made this work in 2003, but about 4 years later, some students in Finland made a system called Pac-Land, which was kind of similar to that, but they were using Nokia phones. So already we can have such kind of mixed reality entertainment on a small phone device. But I became very interested. How could we provide such kind of entertainment, not just for young people who are fit and can move around quickly in the city streets, but this kind of merging of both mental and physical experience would also be beneficial for elderly people. Elderly people also should have both a mental and physical activity, right? They should not be, so we should try to promote this. So this system here, I wanted to create mixed reality entertainment that would allow children, like grandchildren and grandparents, to play together. So the idea is to have this kind of social physical game, but to make an intergenerational gameplay, and to allow a system where both elderly and children can play together, but they have adjustable game parameters, so they have equal participation. So what's the motivation for making such kind of entertainment, or such kind of interaction? Well, in our modern society, there's a huge gap between youth and elderly culture, especially with the rapid increase of technology. And although gradually elderly people will become more and more familiar with technology, but still there'll be something even newer and newer, and we have a kind of exponential increase of technical breakthrough, especially in media and computing. So although children enjoy to play digital entertainment, the kind of games that elderly people play, maybe chess or mahjong, is maybe a little bit boring for young people. And also, in both traditional computer games where you're kind of sitting in front of a screen, and also elderly games, there's a lack of physical body movements. And also, could we make a kind of system where our parents could also join in the interaction, even if they're busy at work? And why should we be concerned as, computer scientists or media designers, why should we be concerned about elderly? Well, as you know, in Japan and other countries, there's a growing aging population. So, as you know, more and more people are above 60, and so if elderly people have isolation, lack of activity, then it's detrimental to society and economy. So I'll show you this system called Age Invaders, which is designed so that the elderly didn't have to wear heavy equipment or any equipment. So basically now it's a floor-based interaction. So this floor is both display as well as tracking. So as I mentioned, most computer entertainment is designed for young people, but there's relatively little social interaction, especially physical social interaction, and controllers are not so suitable for elderly people. So, but psychologists have shown that elderly can enjoy a computer gaming experience, but very few media promotes interaction between young people together with elderly. So the importance is to have that interaction together rather than creating games which are just for young or elderly. So it's a simple game because based on the original Space Invaders that both elderly and children could easily understand, and it allows the movements easily in this platform, as well as social interaction, because people have to talk together to play the game well. So, as I mentioned, the board actually has tracking, so the people can be tracked on the board, and as they move, their avatar moves in real time in the virtual environment. So, for example, parents could be at work, busy at work, but they could still play together with their grandparents and the grandchildren. So you have a multi-generational play. So, for example, a mother might put a love heart for the daughter or son, and then they can get more health. Or maybe they want to save grandma and put a barrier there, so parents can also join in. And we also balance the gameplay in the physical environment. So the elderly's laser beam is actually very fast. So, and children also have to follow fast dance steps, otherwise they lose and avoid the quick lasers. So they're playing the same game, but there's a balance of the physical interaction. So actually, we've recently we completed user studies with a group of about 30 elderly people from a kind of community club in Singapore, and ranging from age 60 to 82. And they were playing together with primary school age children. And it was so the results actually were very positive. So even elderly who had never used a computer before at all had a very positive reaction to this experience, enjoyment as well as ease of use. And very soon, I'm not sure if you know the journal Interacting with Computers, there will be a paper specifically about the user studies of this Age Invader system, which has a lot of the details. So that was talking about the physical and social entertainment, and a very related is about physical and social communication. Communication is part of entertainment, and also plays is a form of communication. But so I think that we are now going through a kind of paradigm shift in terms of communications. So for a while, many of the problems in research was about how can we share information. So logical and verbal communication was the most important aspect for transmitting accurate data and information transmission. But we've basically solved a lot of those problems now. So we have very high speed and almost lossless information communication. So for text and audio and even video now, we can provide very good information sharing. But so now we realize that, as I mentioned, a lot of our communication is not only logical and verbal, but involves feeling and non-verbal communication. And so we should provide communication which can not only share information but share our experience, so our multimodal experiences that we have in the physical world. So with the new image of communications, we should look at not just sharing information but sharing experiences. So in this vein, I've been interested in how can we create new kind of family connections, so that family and friend connections, so that even if in the modern global lifestyle, maybe parents And actually now even children are so busy, so parents at work and children cram school and this kind of thing, but they could still have the sharing the experience of all their senses. Physical interaction is very important. So during times away from home, and people want to stay in contact with loved ones, then physical interaction is a very important way. But right now, it is very difficult to communicate your feeling through physical communication. And in the future, we should have communication with all of our senses. So I want to talk, so related to the previous works on mixed reality games, I was thinking that if you're away from the home and you want to communicate, so in our modern society, pets are a very important part of families. But this is a problem, because if you want to communicate with your pet when you're away from the home, it actually is very difficult. You cannot, unlike communicating with other family members, you could not give a phone call or make a video conference. So could we communicate with our pets when we're away from the home? So this system here called Multimodal was looking at, I want to see, could we make entertainment together, remote entertainment with humans and pets? And in this case, small pet hamster. So Multimodal stands for play with species. So playing games with animals. Right? And the basic idea is that the human is playing remotely through virtual world, and as they move their avatar in the virtual world, it controls a bait, which actually is a tunnel on a robotic arm, because hamsters love to run into small tunnels. And so as the hamster moves in the physical world, giant hamster in the virtual world is chasing you, the human. So it's like a game of cat and mouse, except now the human becomes the mouse. And I think this is also interesting, because in the virtual world, if we tie the virtual world to the real world, we can have new kinds of relations with species. So in the physical world, hamsters are kind of powerless creatures. They could not chase a human. But in the virtual world, they could be chasing humans. Alright, so I want to show you the video of the system here. So here we have the hamster playing arena. And so you can see that in the physical world, the hamster is playing, it's chasing the robotic arm, and the robotic arm corresponds to the human avatar in real time. So as the hamster moves, and it chases the human and catches the human. So we use tracking to track the position of the hamster, and the human player controls the movable bait. And the pet's terrain is made from flexible latex, so that actually the hamster can experience the virtual terrain as a physical environment. So as the virtual terrain moves, also the physical terrain also changes, but not very fast, because otherwise it's very difficult for the hamster. So, but you can see kind of this correspondence of virtual terrain, virtual world with the physical terrain. And so you can see we track the hamsters permanently disabled, mentally disabled. So now, of course, this system, such remote telepresence system should never be seen as replacing real physical touch. It's not the goal of such work. But there is situations where it's impossible to touch your children. For example, now we're all sitting here in this lecture, and it'd be impossible to, for example, give a hug to your loved ones or children. So, although we can call, for example, children with telephone or send a text message, but young children may not fully comprehend deeper meaning of words by phone, email, or message. So we should make more effective communications of our inner minds and feelings. So the system that I'm creating now with my students is called Happy Pajama, and it's to make the recreation of hug through our virtual environment through internet. And so, for example, a parent, mother or father could hug a doll, and then the child will feel the same hugging on their body. And because multimodal is important, this is kind of becoming a media which is closed media and placed on our body. Then also another feature of this is that colour of the material can change according to emotional feelings. So, for example, if a mother wants to send an emotional message, then the clothes could change colour. Or, for example, the colour could change. The clothes could change colour according to how far apart is the mother or father from the child. And so maybe young child doesn't really get a good feeling of how far apart the parent is when they see kilometres or metres, but they can understand changing of colour, maybe from black to pink. Okay, so here's the kind of in the first step. I wanted to make some kind of cute interface where parents could carry, for example, connected to their mobile phone as a kind of. In Japan, many people have straps on their keypad. So, and then you could then touch the doll, and then child could feel virtually hugged.
In human communication, body gestures and touch can sometimes more deeply explain the intended mind. Through hugs, we can spread our spoken language to the language of wider expression. We share hugs with our loved ones, expressing not only love, but also security, confidence, trust, and care. Especially in parent-child relationships, hugging is an important way to communicate and express feelings of loving and care. However, various situations in life keep us away from our loved ones. Huggy Pajama bridges this physical gap between distant loved ones. In times of need and loneliness, a warm hug from a loved one far away provides us with encouragement. Huggy Pajama is a mobile hug communication system that provides a realistic hug sensation and emotional display. It consists of an input hugging device, air output modules embedded in the pajama, and color-changing accessories. Using the input device, parents can convey emotional expressions to the child through the color-changing modules. In the same way, parents can send hugs to their child through the embedded air output modules. Air output modules placed in the pajama recreate the hugging feeling. These modules are individually controlled by touching each of the corresponding sensors on the input device. In this actual scenario, mother is shown hugging the input device, enabling mother to tuck in the child for bedtime. The soft pressure and warm feeling created by the pajama simulates a calm hug. Mother also sends the child a sweet dreams message by changing the color of the flower accessory on the pajama. Hugging between parents and child strengthens the bond between them, giving a message of warmth, happiness, and love. Huggy Pajama makes this possible by building a bridge over any distance.
Now onto kind of a little bit different topic. So recently, in connection with can we bring the virtual world into the real world, recently I think one of the most important questions for society is actually about environmental issues. And so I was actually quite moved when I saw a talk by a physicist, and they said that we soon could reach a tipping point in our environment where it's an unstoppable cycle, and basically eventually all the oceans evaporate and we turn into planet Venus. So this could actually happen in our own lifetime. So environmental issues is some of the key concern, and can we use media to provide more empathy of people to the environment? Can we somehow bring the virtual world into the real world and allow this to have an increase in empathy? So I thought that one way we could do this is that if we want to represent some information about the environment, for example pollution or rainforest, then we can create a kind of display which also is part of that environment, a plant or living creature. And psychologists have shown that living beings can evoke more emotions and promote empathy rather than inanimate objects. So could we make media which represents some information from the internet and allow people to have more empathy than if they just saw some data or charts or virtual object. So the idea is that we can use a kind of ambient living media to promote human empathy about information about nature or environment, or about your organic information, for example, health of your loved ones, etc. And to represent this as a kind of impedance matching between the data about living environment and the ambient display itself. So in the first kind of system that we developed was using E. coli bacteria, and these bacteria are inserted with the glowing gene from jellyfish, and then by controlling the protein in the dish, then the glow can rise and decay. So this is a first form of first version of the living media. But then I thought, to really make this representation well, we can make this, for example, flowers and plants, and even gardens could be a living display, giving information about the environment and nature. So I wanted to make a plant media, and cabbage is actually has a colour which is related to the pH level. So we can use cabbage as a kind of display. So this allows the quantifying of digital information in the colour change of a cabbage. So the kind of this is still not proven, right? So this is kind of work in progress. But my idea is that with traditional media, we might have some empathy, say, about environmental issues. But if we see the living object directly in front of us, then we feel empathy towards the living object, and this could have some increase in the empathy we feel for that data. The basic system is connected to data on the internet. It can be any information from internet, and then the control system will control the color of the living object, living display. And you can see the basic system here, and I'll show a video of the system now.
Terence McKenna proposed that in the 21st century, plants should be the organizational model for life. This can yield new models of interactive computing which brings humans and media into a symbiotic relationship with the natural world. Living media can take the form of any organism that changes under controlled conditions. Research shows that we make stronger connections to living creatures than artificial imitations. If we receive a plastic flower, we don't have the same emotional connection as compared to a real flower, which makes a special impression on our senses. We recognize and build on the strengths of the sympathy response with real living media. Our living media makes empathetic connections. An impedance match is made between the important issues in the world and the color-changing properties of red cabbage. It is important to have an impedance match between the coupling of the input data and the output of the media. In this case, the media is living. It can grow, decay, and change to various hues of color. We propose for this to be impedance matched with digitally measured information, including social, human, and ecological issues. The control system varies the pH level of the solution containing the cabbage at appropriate levels to change the color according to the set point provided by the computer system. The control system senses the pH value of the cabbage and then determines the difference to be corrected in order to reach that set point. It then activates the pump for either the acid or base solution to make the appropriate correction. A special flavin in the cabbage changes color depending on the pH level. An acidic solution changes the color from pink to purple, and an alkali solution will provide a change of color through pink to green. Varying hues of color along the pH range allow for rich visualization of information. Important information to be mapped to the system includes a wide range of sources. This includes personal issues, family issues, societal issues, and wider global issues. From the graphical user interface, the user selects and assigns the data flows to the Garden of Cabbage. In a reversal of roles, the Garden of Cabbage tends to the human, providing the visualization of important information. The user can also add a new data source and set various parameters for the impedance matching of color change and data. This allows for complex data to be represented in a way that can build an emotional relationship and motivate the user toward better habits. This can be especially effective in understanding personal contributions to world issues. For example, in the case of global warming, the pulse of the situation on a global scale is visualized on one portion of the garden, while individual activities representing our personal contributions are assigned to other cabbages. The measurement and display includes personal energy usage, personal consumption of water, amount of consumer waste created, and transportation habits. With the color change of the Babbage cabbage, the impact to society and the effects that may be less tangible become more meaningful and close to heart. This empathetic connection motivates the user to action and raises awareness in complex issues. The metaphor of tending garden through personal actions and relationships has a natural semantic relationship of care and concern. Babbage cabbage changes color using a mechanical and biological control system to bring a new precision in the millihertz range to our relationship with important information in the world.
So, by the way, the sequence is a time lapse in the video, so the change, it takes a few hours or even up to a day because of the nature of the cabbage. So in the future, we can imagine different types of living display. For example, pet squid, which gives colour when someone's trying to send an urgent message to you, or art fish, which can change colour. Actually, in NUS, National University of Singapore, we're collaborating with the professor in biology who actually is making these fish which have very bright colours, but they can't change colour yet, but maybe in the future they can. Okay, so probably the last work I'll show is, as I mentioned at the very start, part of our mental happiness is entertainment, and part of that is culture. So can we make interactive media and interacting with, say, virtual objects or virtual characters to allow people to experience deeply history and culture? Because young people now, for example, don't like to read history or philosophy, and because the modern communications is much more faster than that. So can we bring those benefits of traditional culture to young generations? So for example, this year is 1,000 years of the first novel written in the world, Tale of Genji, 1,000-year-old, and I've been reading it, but every Japanese I've spoken to never read it. Did anyone here read Genji?
Monogatari?
Anyone in Darega?
Yotogatari?
Yeah, so nobody, right? So even such a very important book, I never saw young Japanese read it. So we have to do something. They're losing the culture. Not just Japan, but everywhere. So in this system here, I actually want to see, can we take what the young people like to do now? If you look at young generation, they like to chat, social network, and spend most of their time chatting and Mixi or Facebook or watching YouTube. So if we can use this kind of new interface, but allow young people to experience traditional culture, traditional philosophy, in the new context, such as with online social chat, social networks, then this will enable young people again to experience and explore ancient culture, but through the literacy of digital interactivity. And also, again, on the point about can we create media which elderly and young people like to enjoy together, so this will allow a kind of psychological proximity again between, say, children and elderly. And in this case here, we chose Confucius. Actually I want to choose many different philosophers, like maybe Plato. But anyway, in East Asian culture, in Japan and Korea, Taiwan and China, Confucius is probably one of the strongest traditional influences, and so it's very important for understanding the Eastern culture. So this system here is a kind of both creates a virtual Confucius that people can, young people or any people actually, could chat with and understand traditional Chinese culture and philosophies using social network chat. And it's also allowing through kind of entertainment, so music entertainment, people can make music and make traditional music without having any knowledge of music. And also kind of fun interaction, so to experience Chinese medicine and yin and yang principles through a kind of game about food. So now I'll show you a video of this Confucius computer system.
Confucianism is an ancient Chinese ethical and philosophical system. It has a great impact, especially in China and East Asian countries. Confucius computer is a new form of illogical computer algorithm based on the ancient Eastern paradigms of balance and harmony. The system orders the universe into Confucian categories such as the 5 elements and yin-yang. The system enables users to interact, explore, and experience historic teachings and philosophies through modern everyday activities such as social network chat, music appreciation, cooking, and dietary planning. The system core is a virtual Confucius which can appear as a friend in online social groups such as Facebook. People can also chat with Confucius in their instant messaging software such as MSN. Based on the question asked, Virtual Confucius identifies the Yu, relevant subdomain of knowledge, in the NLX. The system then further queries the user to determine his Hui, aptitude on that topic. According to Yu and Hui, Virtual Confucius then replies to the user. The Confucius interest in music is due essentially to its educational and ethical motivations. Confucius filter works by identifying the scale of the input music based on a probabilistic model. It then transforms the music into the Chinese pentatonic scale by restoring semitone notes to full tones. The output music from the filter is visualized in the form of a traditional Chinese painting. The correspondence between musical notes and features of the painting is based on the 5-element theory. The sequence of notes played generates and destroys objects in the painting according to the Wu Xing Shen Ke, cycles of balance. Wood generates fire. Water overcomes fire. The system allows users to appreciate the unique traditional Chinese medicine concept of hot and cold food. Confucius cooking can be used either in the home or in a restaurant using one's mobile phone. Virtual Confucius queries the user to find out their body state. The users then have to choose appropriate dishes that harmonize their body. Virtual Confucius will then give feedback on their choice.
Eat more cold food like Teochew braised duck.
Confucius computer is an innovative form of illogical computing based on traditional Eastern culture and logic. It reinvents the way people learn and experience ancient philosophies and teachings through modern everyday activities.
Okay, so I have more slides, but probably it's getting to time, so maybe any questions?
Go ahead.
was wondering, some of the very first part of your presentation, we saw the children playing with the table and the augmented reality. I wonder what stage that's at. Is it something that could be deployed into a school, for example? And if so, the infrastructure costs?
Yes, actually, already we made a version of that for, I don't know any slides here for that. I made a version of that for primary school in Singapore, which was to teach them about solar system. So they would see a virtual solar system on their table, and they could do things, for example, so it's very difficult to visualize solar system even with book or video, but they could actually see it like a god in the sky. But not just that, interact. So for example, to understand phase of the moon, they can grab the moon and move it around the Earth and see the different phases as it's seen from the Earth. So yeah, so although it was set up for one school, it was kind of one project. It was a project we did for primary school in Singapore, but it's used by, I think it was 9 and 10-year-olds, and we did a actual study together with a professor who's in child education, and we have a couple of papers which I can send to you later about the results, comparing the teaching in the exactly the same syllabus, but using augmented reality and using the normal curriculum. And there was definitely benefit for the understanding of the children using the system. And I think the second question about the infrastructure. Actually, infrastructure is very simple. Basically, it just needs fairly standard PC and
Just one
camera.
One to manage it, and camera, and then the...
Yeah, those paddles are just pieces of paper, or card. Yeah. So it's very simple. Yeah.
Just I have a doubt about the benefits of human-bits interaction, remote interaction, or even human-human interaction in this way, because I don't think is that the child who have electronic jacket and just live far from father or mother, when just this jacket start to move, he will feel that this is like a hug of father or mother, because when you hug your child, it's not only, just touch, it is smell. The child, even the baby who can't recognize the faces, different people, he just feels the smell of mother or father. And so I think this kind of interaction, I can see the benefits of this in this situation. And also the same for bits. When just I sit and touch a toy, I don't, have the feeling like touch my bit. Maybe I think, I don't know, as a feeling of the bits, but I speak the feeling of a human. Even a child who can play with a smart toy is better than just to touch some electronic thing that is maybe, that there is many smart toys that can give more pleasure to elderly people or children than just a touch with jacket connected to some remote toys. So what do you think about this?
Yeah, very good question. And that's one part of the fundamental studies we have been doing and must continue to do. So for the human case, already there's been studies done by psychologists, as I mentioned one of the works, which showed that actually humans in certain situations that humans can feel the same sense of artificial touch as with real touch, but it depends on the context. So it's very important in these cases to remember it's not a random process. So when the actual usage of such system requires the multimodal communication. So child and parent will know that the touch signal is coming from the parent, and it could be together with voice or video at the same time. So a scenario could be if you're in New York and on a business trip and you want to read a bedtime story, you're reading the bedtime story through maybe video link. At the same time, you can give a hug, good night, which is so it should be seen as in the multimodal context. But we just recently did a series of tests with 20 pairs of parent and child, where they would with a psychologist, and they would do a test where they have the physical touches with hand, because we have to have a way for comparing the same kind of touch signal, and with physical hand and with the system. And actually, with the right context, that the users did report that they have increased sense of presence. It should not, as I said, this should not ever be seen as replacing physical touch. It's meant to be the case where, when it's impossible to be together, then you can have another mode of communication. And for the pet case, that was also a very important question. So, as was kind of shown in the video, but probably I should say in more detail, we did actually do trials using the method of Duncan, which is actually a method to test preference of small fowl and small birds, and that red door, blue door test, and that's used for testing motivation of small animals. So we did find that there was a positive motivation for the pet to go to the room which had the hugging jacket system. But there's one still. Actually, since I've done those tests, I've realised that we have to do another set of tests because we have to also test the case where the pet doesn't have the human putting on the jacket, because that could be the motivation. Because for a few seconds, the human will touch the pet to put on the jacket. But actually, those tests were quite positive to show the pet had a preference. Quite marked preference for entering the room which had the system, yeah. And for the human-to-human case, still this is very ongoing work. But a lot of psychologists have already done some fundamental work to show that artificial touch can have a similar sense of presence as real touch.
So I have one more question.
Yeah, actually, please forgive my rudeness. We have a tight schedule, so I'm going to ask you to take your question offline. First of all, let's thank Professor Adrian for his very we were very lucky to get both him and Aaron here for our modest workshop, so they flatter us by their presence. Like I said, we're running a tight schedule. We're meant to start the next session in only 5 minutes, and we have to do the technical preparation. Are you going to be around here this afternoon?
Yes.
Yeah, so Terry and then Hamada Sensei are encouraged to approach Aaron right now, for instance, or any time in the next couple hours.
Okay.
Well, basically, where you is, we're building out a 3D map. What you see here on the board, 16 spoke lines, which is the actual concept the museum is going to look. So the center.
High school here, I was very much impressed and affected by my life in Japan. It was here I decided to become an architect, and in perhaps one of the most interesting educational opportunities I had was in 1962. I was selected to give the Emperor's birthday present, and this is in the Imperial Palace. This is the Master of Ceremonies, and we were able to go in for a young man to be able to visit the Imperial counselors and the University College representatives that have information of value to them. And I'm convinced there's no way you can reach these people and not reach everybody else. The information is the same and it's of value. One of the things that I wanted to mention today, we're all in a world where, whether you're students, whether you're in the faculty, whether you're representing a company, it's important to have a strategy for success. One of the things that I always stress is that I went into an architecture school, a college, that was at a university that has a governor that's in the United States of America, and this was my path. I got support of the school in the form of, I was teaching there, I was able to start a university research lab.
player, but you could do it in Firefox.
Yeah. I mean, for example, if camera is here and
Infrared distance detection in Gainer. Gainer is a prototyping company.
Oh, it's IR sensor. Instrument for iPod.